All right, good morning. Welcome, glad that you are here. So, leadership and success. This is my formal picture that I take everywhere as the headshot, but I was informed just last night that this is not allowed to be my formal picture when I give presentations anymore, when I've got this picture later on in my slide. So I was told that I must move this to my actual picture, especially when I'm talking about leadership and success, and we're talking about connections and all those pieces, because this really defines me in a nutshell when I go anywhere in school. My students expect that I'm going to be ridiculous, and if it's a pep assembly, they should expect to lose because I'm so competitive. This is me at our September pep assembly, and it's Hungry Hungry Hippos, and it's supposed to be that you're playing in teams, but I get just really excited when I'm competing during pep assemblies. And the king candidate had a broken arm, so he was like, "Can Skinner participate for me?" And I was like, "Of course I can." And my partner is back there. Well, why is she not holding my feet like she's supposed to? Well, because she wasn't fast enough, and she's my on my scholars team, and she knows. She's like, "Skinner, I just go." And so that's me. So as we think about anything with education, first want to remember the fact it's April. It's April, and not even May, and so we all know what April means. April's like, school's almost over, right? No, it's not. So in these times, I think it's really important that we take a moment, especially in April, but I actually set a calendar notification monthly to remember our why. Why do we go into education? Why did we choose this job? Why do we stay in this job? Why do we choose to do things like sacrifice your Saturday morning to come and learn more about this job? So I'm gonna jump down from here and just ask for 2 or 3 of you that will be willing to share. Why are you here? Why do you choose education? And if you raise your hand, I'll come to you, and if you don't, then I'll find you and I'll choose you. So. All right, we got one back there. I'm gonna move. Gotta get my steps in. And just as I get to the front, it's gonna be someone at the back. That's exactly how it's gonna work. Seeing nobody, I'm seeing nobody. So I got one. I was just about to pick a random person.
I kind of fought being a teacher since I was a little girl. People were like, "You should be a teacher." I don't want to do that. And I finally went into it, and it was like the best decision in my life, and I don't know why I didn't do it sooner, because I just love the helpful things. I'm an English teacher. This is awesome. Goodbye.
Thank you, thank you. So I have to say I'm a little bit perplexed. I was certain that as we talked about these things, let's see if I can do this succinctly. I was certain that as we're going through these things, that the whys you guys had, that I didn't hear at all, were, well, I get my summers off, and everyone just universally respects our profession. And I just can't get enough of looking at data and statistics and standards, and I didn't hear any of that, so that's, no, those things are important, but what's most important, oh, did I lose my clicker? Just click once. Is connections. And each of your whys that you discussed hit on that connection piece. And I would bet that the rest of you that were thinking about it had some sort of a connection. Now I loved earlier when it was talked about the purpose of Edcamp is bringing people together, about connecting, and it's about humans, because that's what education is. That's what the classroom is. Every job in the world has tasks that you have to do, such as writing lesson plans, filling out requests for sub-requests, or whatever those pieces are. But what makes our job different, makes our job a profession, is we have the human interaction, we have the relationship, and that's what makes our profession different and better. So, I can't really talk about leadership and education without talking about gardening, especially when we get to the fact that it's April, because I'm a massive gardener. And for me, it's just, I want to be outside all the time because it brings me calm. So this is a picture though from a tomato plant that I had in my garden last year, just a couple weeks after it had been planted. And there's a nice straight stem, there's good coloration in leaves, and there's some good growth that's forming on there. And to me, that's what I would have expected from a tomato plant that had been in the ground for just a few weeks. And with planting and gardening, you have to do a lot of behind the scenes work. It is not just as simple as putting something in the ground, watering it, and watching it grow. But sometimes when you do all of that work, it still doesn't turn out how you want it to. And that's what happened with my sister's garden, who actually put in more work than me. And she missed on one late night when she was putting a cover over, there was a hole in her garden cover. You didn't know this is a comedy session. One more click. Nope, that's 2 more clicks. There we go. Just like that, there's damage. Just like that, it seems that all of her hard work is lost, because if you get a tomato plant below about 40 degrees, this is what happens. And she was like, I gotta start over. I don't know what to do. But she didn't have to start over. She took a moment, she regrounded herself, and she realized, I just need to spend the next couple weeks putting a few hours of extra work into these tomato plants to bring them back to a level where they're stable and they can begin to grow again. Because gardeners can't control everything. There's so many other things that are outside of our control. But what we can control is the amount of work we're willing to put into plants that are struggling from those situations outside of our control. And when we lean on a community of experts within our gardening community, we're able to allow our gardens to flourish. And I love that as a metaphor for teaching, because isn't that exactly how teaching is? We have so many things that we don't have control over, but what we do have control over is the amount of work we're willing to put in to care about another human being. So, what is leadership then? When we think about this, as we think about this caring and what is leadership, and sometimes it gets talked about, in my opinion, incorrectly, with thinking, well, I'm going to be the authority figure in my class. But that's not what a leader is. The difference between a leader and an authority figure, I would say leaders build trust. Leaders inspire others. Authority figures instill fear. That's the difference between a leader and an authority figure. It's the difference between trust and fear. And we need to make sure that we are building spaces for our students so they feel safe and they want to join us as they go forward. We are not being in charge of other students. We are taking care of students that are in our charge. And that's important. But I think it's impossible to talk about leadership without thinking about some of the barriers that sometimes creep in that are outside of our control. It'd be great to just talk about the really feel-good things this whole time. But sometimes that's not the harsh reality that we have to do work with. So what are some of the barriers? When I've traveled around the state, I've asked different teachers, what are some of these things that sometimes keep students from being able to be successful? And these 6 sort of encompass those. Attendance, apathy, social media, struggles outside of school, drama, and misunderstanding. And some of those take a little more explanation as you think through how they fit in. And for the purpose of this, I'm going to mainly focus on attendance and struggles outside of school, a little bit of apathy. If you want to learn about some of the others, come to one of my sessions later or come hear me present somewhere else. Little plug. So when we're thinking about outside of school struggles, there's this concept that the Kansas Teacher of the Year team for 2023 talks about, which is the invisible backpack. So the invisible backpack is the concept that every individual has with them something that is keeping them from being able to be focused in any given day, any given moment, any given morning. It could be applying to any of you right now. It could be that, man, I almost ran out of gas. I'm still trying to figure out what my plan is for getting home. It could be, I'm here right now, but I've got to get to my kid's soccer match later, so I hope that this guy doesn't talk for too long because I got to make it there on time. Whatever it is. 2 of my K-Toy team's current backpacks. Or it could be something much heavier. Sometimes we pull out these examples, which there are hundreds in here that our students wrote down of things that keep them from being focused. Some of them are very heavy. Or it could be something like just last night. Got a text from school social worker, one of the students of mine that graduated last year, who has struggled with holding down jobs because invisible backpacks, they exist outside of school. His dad just passed away unexpectedly last night. He's someone that I know. He struggles with being able to communicate those types of things, and I would bet that he doesn't tell his boss that he's struggling with that at that moment. So if his boss today, tomorrow, Monday, when he goes next back into work, and he's not putting out the same work efficiency, just comes at him like, you know what the expectations are, and yells at him, how do you expect him to respond? If we don't take a moment to recognize someone as a human, because these things, as we go across and look, here are a few more, I'm just gonna let them scroll, some of them that are written here. It's not our job to know what is going on in a student's life. That is not our job. We don't need to know the struggles they're having outside of school, but we do need to know that there's almost certainly something that is going on in their lives. And that's what it is. It's recognizing them as a human when we interact with them. It's recognizing our colleagues when they're having their worst day. Another human. And sometimes I get people that say, well, but when I do that kind of stuff, doesn't it just lower my expectations and my standards in my classroom? It doesn't. It shows that you're human, and it builds the connection, and it shows that you care, and it actually increases the likelihood that they are going to meet your standards and your expectations later. So that's the what a leader does. How does a leader do it? And I would identify that a leader does these things in the classroom with just three C's: communication, connections, and collaboration. I really think it's that simple. If you communicate, you collaborate, and you connect, you make all the difference. I had the opportunity to attend an adaptive schools training a few years ago, and it was all about communication. And a few things that it really hit on was, one, that communication is a two-way street. Sometimes we forget about that. The other person that we are talking to, they have 50% of that voice in that conversation for it to be really communication. But also the idea of assuming positive intentions. If you don't assume positive intentions when someone puts their head down, because maybe they're misunderstanding or you're not understanding how they're needing to be learning in the moment, we're shutting off the chance for them to communicate. I also had the opportunity to attend an adaptive schools not adaptive schools. I had the opportunity to Capturing Kids' Hearts training a few months ago with the rest of the Kansas Teach of the Year team, and we talked about connections. And the thing that stuck with me most from that was relational capacity. The ability for an individual to be able to accept feedback you're giving them, positive or negative, is directly proportional to the relational capacity you have with them. If you don't build time, if we don't build time to build those connections, we can't accept them to take our feedback. And you're gonna get some administrator at some point that's gonna say, teach bell to bell, because if you lose 3 minutes at the beginning of every class, then every week you've lost this many, and every school year you've lost this many, and by the time they graduate, they've lost this much learning, and okay, sure, that's fine. But I'm gonna tell you, take that time, because you're not wasting that time, you're making the rest of your time more meaningful. And if they have a problem with that, tell them, well, Skinner said, and they can try and fire me and they won't have any good luck, unless any of you are from Newton, in which case don't tell your admin that, I don't wanna get fired. But that time's important. And collaboration. Again, I think this one's most important in April and May because we forget about our why, and we forget also that we have a team. And that's important this time because it's so easy when things get toughest to try and do it on ourselves, all our own, but we have a team. And to demonstrate, before we demonstrate that, I want to make sure that I talk about, just real quick, and I'm going to talk more about special education in my other sessions, but I feel like I need to include these statistics on there because this shows the importance of a team. These are the Center for Disease Control statistics for autism. These people just graduated, 1 out of 156. These people haven't even entered grade school yet. And the 2023 statistics just came out about a week ago. 1 in 36 is what it says. So if we think about the capacity of what we need to do as educators to meet everyone's needs, we gotta be changing everything we do, we gotta be connecting, we have to be working as a team. We have to be working as a team. It's not a special education issue, it's an everyone issue. So give me 5. So we'll see if this can work real well. Usually you need a platform, but we're gonna try it anyway. So we'll use our legs. So if you take your hand and put your elbow on your leg, and then move your hand down, and go ahead and just wiggle your thumb for me. And then wiggle that pointer finger. And then tuck the middle finger under. And now lift up that ring finger. Right, okay, it's working a little bit for some of you at least. So yeah, you see it, and you think it should move, and so our instinct is let's go get a special ed teacher, let's go to para, let's more resources and lift that up because we have all the resources. Well, that might work in the moment, but it doesn't teach anything. So real quick, let's go ahead and now lift up that pinky, lift back up that pointer, lift back up that thumb, and now lift your ring finger. And you can lift it just a little bit. Not all the way, but you can lift it a little bit. And I think that exemplifies that's the power of teamwork. That's the power of someone who's struggling with something that has a deficit in an area. Instead of trying to fix that, you empower them to work with other team members that have strengths that can build them up. Because if they have those skills, they can be successful, and they know how to be successful when you're gone. Because we only get them for 9 months. And attendance is where I want to address with this one, because if they aren't there, it's hard to make as big of a difference because we can't do much. But you can't succeed academically if your needs aren't met first. And the more we see them as humans, the more they're likely to be invited into the culture that we created, and the more likely we are to be able to have the opportunity to connect and lead with them. And that's why this is so important. But I could talk about this for forever and only have so much impact. I'm going to let someone that's really, really capable of talking about it talk about it. And this is going to be a video from Jessica Gazana's students here right at Spring Hill. Since we're at Spring Hill, I thought I'd show it.
And you can do it also fast. You're very nice and you give us candy.
My teacher gives us free time.
I like my teacher because of her kindness and tolerance.
Good teachers make our brains grow.
Good teachers help us do our work.
She's really helpful and kind to me and the other kids in my class.
My favorite thing about my teacher is her good personality.
They know every student learns in a different way.
They push me when I don't think I can do it.
What makes my favorite teacher awesome is that she keeps control of her class but makes it so fun that I forget that I'm at school.
The best teachers connect with their students and get to know them.
They're just themselves and they have fun with their students.
A supportive teacher will make me feel safe, and they'll comfort me when I have a bad day, and they won't judge me for anything.
They don't underestimate me.
They have amazing patience.
I like teachers who are warm and welcome and always have a smile on their face. They care for me and not just about how much I learn.
A good teacher enjoys what they do and their students notice it.
All good teachers know that little and big kids need time for fun.
Your attitude affects how we respond, and a good teacher knows that each group has a new personality.
Good teachers get to know their kids so well that they can sense high levels of stress and when kids have a bad day.
I love when my teachers are able to challenge me in everything that I do every day.
A good teacher will allow their students to make mistakes and learn and grow from them.
Good teachers are understanding and have a good sense of humor.
The best teachers are accepting and just fun to talk to.
You are
Teaching us.
Teaching us.
Teaching us.
Making us grow.
Making us grow.
Making us grow.
We will be successful because of you.
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 You!
And you.
Thank you for all of your hard work. We appreciate all of you.
So, I know what you're thinking. Why didn't he just show that video and then drop the mic? And I don't know either. I don't know why I didn't just do that and only that. Also, the cutest little girl that was in there, that's Miss Jessica Gazana's daughter. So, in the classroom, I work to eliminate stigmas through connecting with every child. And with that, any Abbott Elementary fans out there? Yeah, a few, okay. So there's this character in there by the name of Mr. Hill. And his students call him Mr. C. You know, yeah, we call him Mr. C. And he's like, I don't know why they call him Mr. C, but it's fine, I'm gonna keep doing my thing. Well, they call him Mr. C because C stands for corny. Because he is just so corny to them, but he doesn't care. He's gonna do his thing. He's gonna do what he wants to do because that's him. That's his authentic self, and they love him and respect him for that. When we try to connect with students, we've got to remember that we've got to be our authentic selves. We got to make sure that we are being who we are, and we're letting them see who we are, because those connections are also two-way streets. And if I need to act out Romeo and Juliet with a puppet show, then sure, if I need to dress up with them, then I'll do that. Pep Assembly, these students here, they're like, hey, can you take a picture because we want people that you go around and tour with this year to see us all around the state. Sure, I'll absolutely do that. So I'd like real quick, and I know I'm getting short on time, I'm gonna try and keep this as succinct as possible. I'd like each of you to think for a moment about a colleague that you have, a coworker, a student, a loved one, someone that you're with, and think about a strength that they have. Just for a moment, just a strength that you would say they have. And now I'd like you to take a moment and think about a strength that you have. And if you've gotten that, then I'd like you to think of 3 strengths that you have. Now, if you're anything like me, the first task I gave you was the easiest. And the last task was like, I don't know, I sure hope he doesn't call on me like he did before. Because that's hard. We struggle to find our own strengths sometimes. We get so good at telling other people their strengths. But the reason that I talk to you about that is because of self-efficacy, hard work, and knowing what you have to do to achieve your best talents. It is so important that when we are seeing our students' strengths, we are telling them these are their strengths, because a lot of times they don't know their own strengths. And when we help them understand their strengths, they believe in themselves more, and they're more likely to work harder to achieve more. And if we look at this, we see the difference between talent versus hard work. It's all about those long-term goals of knowing what your strengths are, and we can help them do that. So I started with talking about recentering with our why. So I want to finish with thinking about the why, because it's so important. So this is my why. And when I struggle at any point in the year, I think about one of my students that came in and graduated just a few years ago, and he was one of those high energy students. He had been taught at some point that his success was different, so therefore it wasn't worthwhile, so therefore why should he try? So I'm just gonna have fun in class. And through a lot of connections and patience and deep breaths, we started to make some gains, and he started to care a little bit about school, just a little bit. And by the end of the first year, he asked to move to my caseload, and I thought, man, look at this difference I've made in 1 year, look at this. Should have known better. Every student that comes in with some of their struggles is gonna fall back off the bandwagon at some point. And sophomore year, he made a poor choice, right, wrong, otherwise, whether you agree or disagree. That choice meant he was out for 90 school days. And just like that, the connections were broken. And the connections were broken with me too, which is something I didn't realize because I was part of that school system. So I sent emails trying to, hey, let's see what we can do. And it took 10 or 11 emails before he responded back and said, hey, I don't want to fall off the school off completely. So we tried again. And we started to build a plan, and we started doing some tutoring. So when he integrated back to school, we started to get back on track. But then junior year, he came back again. He was like, Skinner, I'm sorry. He had no reason to be sorry, but he's like, I've got something else we gotta work through. My girlfriend is pregnant. Okay, let's make a plan. Let's figure out how we can prioritize as best we can your education on top of the other things that need to be our priorities. And we made a plan, and he made it a priority because he had rebuilt the connections with the school system. He asked me to be there at the hospital when his first son was born, which was a moment that just made me feel gratified of, let's just think about the impact that you're willing to share such a special moment. Senior year, luckily, no major issues, some minor issues, but no major issues. And now he has a family, he has a job, he cuts my hair. He probably didn't want me to tell you that because I need to get my hair cut on Tuesday. But he is so proud that he gets to cut Skinner's hair. And every time he goes, he's like, this is Skinner, guys. Ask him questions, he knows all the things. And I'm like, stop it, don't embarrass me like that. But when I come back, he's gonna say, hey, did you tell more people about me? You gotta share, you gotta tell people that I cut your hair. He's so excited, so that's my why. I think about that all the time of that difference, and I'm lucky enough to have someone in my community that can tell me that, but every one of you has so many of those same stories, and you may not have the opportunity to have them tell you that, but it doesn't mean you're not having that impact. So I wanna finish with having you just take about 20 seconds of quietly thinking about your why. So, hopefully you thought of something that just made you smile, made you happier. And that song, yesterday I said that the song would identify my year was Here Comes the Sun, because I love gardening, but also because this is the time of year where we get to send them on their way and see all the progress that they've made. For me, it's graduation, And it's just such an invigorating time to remember the joy that we can bring to education. Our Kansas Teach of the Year team, oh, I'm so close. Okay, our vision is education is what we make it. Every one of you does amazing and phenomenal things in your classroom. Every one of you does. You build those connections, you see individuals as humans, but it's when we do it collectively, when we connect as humans, that we make the biggest difference. This conference is about elevating teachers. And when we elevate teachers, we elevate learning. And as we elevate learning, the chance of us making a world that we want to live in, that we want to see, goes so much higher. And I'm so proud to be part of that. I want to thank you so much for giving me the time to be able to speak here this morning. And Next Slide says thank you, I promise. And that's it.